Ladies, gentlemen, I am with Fereidoon Sioshansi, publishing his third book within 3 years, and always innovation, novelty, disruptions in the electricity sector. Fereidoon, where is your book, the last one?
Well, the last one has just come out, as you can see here. I'm pleased that these have been coming out at regular intervals, roughly once a year.
You want give it to me?
I think I have the pleasure of giving
Wow,
it to you.
450 pages. Fereidoon, first of all, innovation, changes, etc. Is it a vision? Is it a dream? Or is it a bit more substantial?
Usually starts with a vision, and it usually comes from someone who wants to change the status quo. And it's a typical of someone who wants to disrupt the status quo. And it typically starts with inefficiencies in the existing system. So somebody looks at it, like the Uber example, which everybody talks about. They look at the service, which is inefficient and expensive, awkward, wait for the taxi, tip the taxi, you have to have cash.
But it's not about taxis, it's about electricity. So,
of course, but
what is new in the electricity sector itself?
Well, the biggest change, I think, is scale. We are going from an industry that used to be characterized by few very large players to a system of many very small players.
Decentralization of offer, of generation. And you are also using digitalization as a subtitle. Digitalization, what role does it have?
Well, as technology evolves, every device that uses electricity is getting smarter and also getting connected to the internet or something else. So devices can talk to each other, can talk to the meter, and upstream of the meter. So that just opens a range of opportunities that did not exist in the past.
So Internet of Energy is starting.
I think it's here. It still has a lot of bumps. There's a lot of disconnections.
Yes, yes.
We have to think about the discontinuities and so forth. So a lot of people are trying to connect the dots and make the, as a whole, to work together.
So this I catch that. The electricity sector, generation side, is more decentralized. We also have digitalization, so many things are becoming possible. But whom are the players of innovation? Are they small companies, startups, people in garage? Or are they individuals, the famous prosumer? Are they subsidiaries of incumbents? Where are the innovators?
Most of them, I think, from what I've seen thus far, they are not from within the existing incumbent industry. They tend to be from outside, although many times they're bought by the incumbents. So many of the big companies, including oil companies, for example, which have deep pockets, they buy these exciting newcomers because they see the potential for growth and so forth. So, incumbents in the industry, to my knowledge, have not really moved in. It's exceptions where you see a utility, for example, or a distribution company. But that's changing. I think, for example, Enel and Endesa and some of the other large utilities and distribution companies.
So we have kind of many startups, a few incumbents starting to move. And what about individuals? The individuals, the prosumers, are they very active, very important, or not?
Very important, and I think you put your finger on it. That is really the future. A lot of people believe that that's really what's driving. It's not, individuals who put solar panels on the roof or buy an electric vehicle for whatever reason, or they put storage batteries in the garage and maybe sell the excess generation to the next door neighbor, which is not strictly legal today, and so forth and so on. So, and they're not always doing it necessarily being 100% economically rational, but every prosumer that I've spoken to has a reason for doing it. So it's kind of hard to understand why would, for example, people invest fairly significant amounts to put solar panels on the roof?
So what do the Californians, what do the Australians today? We have to look at, because it can come in Germany, it can come in Italy, because we also have many prosumers in these European countries.
And I think the motivation is similar all over the world. The cost of doing this is becoming less and less prohibitive.
I understand.
A lot of people feel good, particularly if you live in, let's say, a part of US where electricity is predominantly generated from coal. So some people are doing it because they want to get clean electrons as opposed to the dirty electrons that the utility delivers.
So it's a world trend. It's coming both from the decentralization of electricity generation and also the activation of individuals, units, startups.
Right.
But if we look at the environment, the laws in the countries, the parliaments, the courts, the energy regulators, are they pushing it, slowing it? Are they strictly neutral and they do not play any role? What is the environment bringing to this revolution?
You know, it varies. Some countries, the regulators actually promote this trend and encourage it and subsidize it and so forth. In other countries, they're neutral or not doing much. In some countries, they're actually prohibiting it. You know, Spain for a while had something that was called the sun tax. I don't know if you've heard of that, but now that's been removed. In Mexico, there were restrictions on putting solar panels until recently. So regulation plays a big role. I'm not personally in favor of subsidies, but in some places there are generous subsidies to kickstart the process. California, for example, started in 1996 with a very generous net energy metering regulation, which still exists, and it's very favorable to solar, rooftop solar investment. Australia similarly had very, very favorable feed-in tariffs, and as did Germany and a number of other places. So many times the regulation kickstarts, but what is interesting is even after they withdraw the feed-in tariff and the subsidies, people continue to install them. For several reasons. One is the cost has now come down. There's a local trade for installing them and so forth. They know how to do it and who is likely to install. And so even when the feed-in tariff disappears and the net energy metering is less generous, people continue to do exactly what they were doing before. So it's very interesting that once you kickstart this process of decentralization, it takes on a life of its own. And I think we're getting to a point where it's primarily driven by savings in your utility bills. It's not the subsidy that's driving most of the decision making. So it's very interesting.
I even see other trends because centralization, digitalization, if we add to them peer-to-peer, collective action, communities, or management of smart things, what we call Internet of Things, but Internet of Things will permit to manage fleets of thousands of things. I think that people sticking to the old model of the old utilities will really suffer, and many, many opportunities will be given to change either the structure of the energy sector or the leading companies. That's the way I see it.
Exactly.
Ladies, gentlemen, that's the book. Behind and beyond the meter, and behind the meter, it is you. So you have something to do with the book and something to do with energy transition. Fereidoon, congrats.
Thank you very much.